Good morning. As we have begun the appeal for Episcopal Charities in the Diocese of Long Island, I thought I would take a few moments to send this message to you to encourage you and your support for the work of Episcopal Charities in our diocese. The scriptures remind us that the primary concern for those of us who call ourselves followers of Christ need to be focused on the fact that the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. That in fact we as members of the body of Christ are called to that same ministry in the midst of God's people, in our local communities, in our parishes, the places where we live and work and have our being. Episcopal Charities has transformed the way that it provides financial support for the ministries of our diocese. There is a spirit of cooperation that has taken over our focus on fundraising, that the outward and visible expression of our donating dollars to support ministry is really a prayerful and heartfelt concern for our brothers and sisters in need. We only need to think about what has happened in our diocese since Superstorm Sandy, the response of our diocese to help those most in need, particularly in Mastic Beach and in Far Rockaway, the work that's being done in those communities, even as you gather in worship today, and I sit here in my office on this day. We are reminded that the work of our diocesan camp is supported vigorously by the donations made to Episcopal Charities, that Christian formation and fellowship and learning will continue for the generations to come in our diocese through the work of Camp de Wolf. We're always reminded of the particular parish initiatives that are supported by Episcopal Charities that rely on our gift of financial resource for the building up of God's kingdom. But more importantly than naming off a list of those places and institutions and ministries that are supported by Episcopal Charities, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that as God's people, as members of the body of Christ, we are called to share our resources, our very selves, with all of God's people, to invest particularly in the setting in which we find ourselves. I am encouraging our parishes to seek new ways of engaging ministry and God's mission in the local community. And in so doing, we'll invite parishes to seek grants for those kinds of works through Episcopal Charities. And so in a real way, our outward and visible expression financially to Episcopal Charities will come and support the ministry and the work of the church in Brooklyn, in Queens, in Nassau, and Suffolk in ways that we have not yet ever been able to imagine. We need to take a moment to think about the sharing of our resources as an expression of God's grace and mercy at work in and through us as members of the body of Christ. It is important that you and I today spend some prayerful moments thinking about that outward and visible expression, as it will change the lives of God's people whom we are called to serve. What I'd like to ask you to do is not pay attention primarily to how much you donate, but how much you would like to see the work of the church accomplish. Think about those places in the local community, the children in your neighborhood who could be touched by the work of Episcopal Charities. Think about the work of Episcopal Community Services and support it receives through charities. The work of caring for God's people in the various settings in which we find ourselves. Across this diocese, we have so many resources, so many people, and so many opportunities for us to respond to God's call to serve and not to be served. I invite you on this day to prayerfully consider a donation to Episcopal Charities, not as an obligation, but as a sharing in God's mission that is placed before you and me in this Diocese of Long Island. Do it gratefully, do it generously, do it faithfully, that we together might be the church in this time and support those most in need in our communities. I thank you for taking the time to listen to this message, to prayerfully consider my request of your financial support to Episcopal Charities, and I ask for your prayers that the good work that God has begun in this Diocese of Long Island will continue fruitfully, faithfully, vigorously, in the name of Christ, who came to serve and not to be served. Thank you, and God bless you.